Yo, what's up, and welcome to episode 108 of Throwback Hoops. My name is Rob Clayton, and joining me as always is my co-host, Woody V. How you doing, mate?
Good, man. It's been a good week. The Kings just snuck through there, so pretty happy, man. Pretty happy.
I don't know if I was as happy as that with the Kings making it, but anyway, I'm glad your team made it. Well, Woods, I'm extremely excited to introduce this guest today. So you both might want to get comfortable here because we might be here for a while. So as I mentioned, really excited to introduce this special guest. This man is a legend of Australian basketball, playing 526 games over 17 seasons for his hometown Adelaide 36ers between 1992 and 2009. In this time, he was a three-time champion in 98, 99 and 2002. He was a two-time finals MVP, a four-time NBL All-Star. He was a seven-time All-NBL team player. And he also played over 100 games with the Australian Boomers, including playing in the 96, 2000 and 2004 Olympic Games. He also played in the FIBA World Championship and the Goodwill Games. His famous number 5 jersey hangs in the rafters, and he even has his signature on the 36ers home court. It's a huge Throwback Hoops welcome to the one and only Brett Maher.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Brett. I didn't miss anything there, did I? Feel free to let me know if I did.
It's pretty close to the mark.
Nice. Well, really appreciate you joining us, mate. As we mentioned, we're sort of really looking forward to ask you a few questions about your career and then a couple of things at the end about the current state of the league. So, as I also mentioned, Brett, Woody and I are huge jersey collectors. So we always start off our episode just showing a couple of jerseys there. So I'll start with you, Woods. I know it's a bit of an Adelaide theme today. So who you got for us today?
All right, just stand up.
All right. So we've got the famous number 13. None other than Darnell Me.
And we had Adam Ballinger on the show not too long ago, and I asked him what his experiences were playing alongside Darnell Me, and he had some great answers. So instead of going through all his accolades, Brett, I might as well throw over to you and give us a little bit of insights into what it was like getting to know and play alongside the great man.
Yeah, it was fantastic. We just had a reunion not that long ago, and he flew over from the States and got to catch up with Darnell, and he was certainly in my top 3 all-time players to play with. He did whatever needed to be done to win a game, and it was a great teammate and was a real winner.
Yeah, when you talk about some of the greatest defensive players to play in this league, right? Darnell Me's got to be right up there.
Yeah, I think him, Damien Martin.
Yep.
I think Shea Illy's creating
for sure.
Little niche there for himself as well. There's been some good ones, but he sticks right out, especially in our championship wins in 98, 99. He, I think, changed the game for us, especially in the first one. They were looking everywhere to see where he was because he was blocking shots, stealing balls, and he could turn a game at the defensive end. And there's not a lot of players that can do that, but he was certainly one of them. And it was kind of a thrill for me to be able to train with him so regularly, and it made me a better player for sure.
What's he up to these days, Brett?
He's coaching his old high school. So he's back where he grew up and coaching high school ball, which he said comes with its own challenges. But he's really enjoying that. He enjoys coaching, and I don't think he'd write off coming out here if he got an opportunity to coach out here in some capacity as well. And
also did, wear the Boomers jersey for a short while as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah.
Had some great Americans that have naturalised and been able to play for the country, and it was good to see him have a little crack at it.
Yeah, that number 8 seed Denver Nuggets team that beat the Sonics in 5, right? Darnell Me was actually part of that team, and there was quite a few injuries, and he had a bit of a role to play in that upset victory in the 90s, if you recall. Yeah,
well, he did. He had some good games there with Denver, and I guess that's where he forged a great relationship with Kevin Brooks, who
for sure
filled that other import spot for us in those winning years. And they had a really great relationship together, which certainly helped. It's always hard to get one really good import, let alone get 2 like that we had. And that made it such a special time.
Yeah, awesome. Good to see he's doing well. And not only did I just wear the jersey today, a good friend of the show wrote a certain book, and I've just been reading it all week. So I thought I'd give it a plug to to all our audience. I got Marvelous right here, 2008, I think, Brett, if I'm not mistaken, and a good friend, Body, read this book. So have a read of it if you haven't. You'd be able to find one on Amazon or eBay, and maybe you can give us some background as to how that started with Body and getting that book written.
Yeah, well, if you're having trouble sleeping, it's a really good one to get. I haven't got past the first chapter yet, but no, it's a good read. And as much of my story, it's probably just as much a bit of a write up on the 36ers history for kind of the 20 years that I was involved, and gives he's so good at putting all of that together and putting in all the statistics. He obviously covered the 36ers over that whole period with the paper here, and his knowledge is second to none
for sure
on Adelaide basketball, but also over the whole NBL. He's very good, and it was a long process to write the book.
Can imagine
and going over things, but it was also a really rewarding one because you brought up a lot of memories and things you kind of forgot about, but he had kind of all written down in his notes, and it was a good experience.
Awesome. Yeah.
Got a great sense of humour as well, doesn't he, Body? He's always
it's a real dry sense of humour.
Yeah, 100%.
Which I like. But yeah, I kind of get his humour. Some people don't, and he does have some people that don't kind of like his writing and that. But I think his heart has always been in the right place. He is honest and just tells it how he sees it, and some people don't agree with that. I think he's been fantastic for the game to give his opinion over so many years.
Nice, well said. Well, appreciate that jersey and the little book showing as well there, Woods. So, look, I've got a couple of jerseys to show, so maybe I'll just talk about the one that's hanging behind me there, Brett. So, look, he was one of my favourite players growing up, and I'm speaking about Al Green there, of course, so another absolute legend of the 36ers. I'm assuming you probably know Al pretty well over the years. What were your sort of thoughts on him?
Yeah, I know Al really well. I saw him last night at the last 36ers game and caught up. We ran some camps together for quite a while as well. And, what he brought to the table, like that game we had 71 odd points or whatever, amazing point scorer, ball handler, distributor. I enjoyed watching. I went along when I was growing up to Apollo Stadium here in Adelaide and love watching Al play. I like the trash talk, the element that he brought to the game there, but also just his athleticism and what he could do with the ball was pretty spectacular. We hadn't, at that stage when he came out, seen many players with his skill set. And, he was exciting to watch. And not only on the basketball court, what he was able to do off the court to win back-to-back Bay Sheffields here in Adelaide. He was a sensational runner and athlete. Some of the stuff he accomplished. He was, I think, a wide receiver in college or high school. And did a very good job in multiple sports. So, he was, I think, a great addition for the 36ers through the 80s, and certainly played a massive part in that 86 championship and also in the West Adelaide championship when he was playing with guys like Leroy Loggins and some other spectacular players.
He could probably still put the ball in the basket, let's face it. It wouldn't surprise me if he could still knock down some shots even at his advanced age there. So
he's still in amazing shape. I see him and I see Mark Davis around. I'm like, those guys don't look too much older than when they're playing. So, it's good to catch up with them. They've always got good stories, and he can certainly held his own on the basketball court, that's for sure.
Nice. All right, well, I'll just quickly stand up and show you the one that I'm rocking there today.
So for all our audio listeners who can't see, it's no surprise which jersey Robbie is wearing today. It's a Brett Maher jersey. What year is that from, Robbie?
I think this is a heritage one they brought out. Ooh, I don't even know, actually. I'd say it's maybe 10 years ago. Brett, I don't know if that...
Yeah, I'm trying to, from the actual logo, work it out. I can't... The actual logo looks like it might have been from like the 80s, one of the ones that they wore then. Yeah. But then with Unleashed Solar and some of the other sponsors, I would have thought it would be early 2000s sort of era.
Sure. One thing I'm always interested in, Brett, is just how people eventually choose their jersey numbers. So obviously number 5 synonymous with your name there. What brought you onto wearing that jersey all those years ago?
It's nothing spectacular. When I was young, the first number I had was number 5, and I was so lucky all the way through, making, when I played for South Adelaide and then Sturt and then state teams, number 5 was available. So I was able to just continue wearing it. When I came into the 36ers, it was available there. And luckily, when I made the Australian team, it was available. So just kind of right the way through the progression, I was very lucky not to have to change it and just keep that number right the way through. There was no specific reason, but I guess I just became aligned with it and stuck with it.
It's not the most common number either, is it? I was thinking that today. I'm a huge Josh Smith fan from back in the day with the Atlanta Hawks, and he wore the number 5. But I can't recall a lot of number 5s over the years. But
yeah, and that's it. I didn't pick it after any other player, which a lot of guys do, obviously, with your 23s and that sort of number. But I just like the number, and was lucky enough to keep it.
Nice. Good stuff. Well, appreciate that, Brett. Thanks as well, Woody, for showing that nice jersey there. So let's get into it, into this interview with Brett then. I'm really looking forward to this. And Brett, something we always, I guess, like to ask our guests to start things off is how you discovered your love for the game and who were your early influences getting into basketball?
Yeah, I started with some mates at school first. They got me into it and I loved it, and then decided to go to the next level and play junior club basketball, and that was a good experience. I felt like I was progressing well, had some really good junior coaches, which I think is important and helps kind of frame where you go. Neil Burford I had in under 14s at Sturt, was a very good coach. And then Neil Glidden, who is synonymous with junior basketball over the last, I don't know how long, 40 plus years, was also a really big influence on me here in Adelaide. I had Frank Arcego as a state coach for a couple of those years as well, who I really enjoyed playing under. And when I went to the Institute at 15, I was so lucky to get Patrick Hunt for 3 years. And I think he's an exceptional developer of talent. And then we had some good assistant coaches like Gordy McLeod and Brett Flanagan and those sort of guys while I was at the Institute. And in those developing years, I think they really kind of set a really good base mark for me to go into the professional leagues. And then we went through quite a lot of coaches in Adelaide. Obviously, Phil Smythe is one of my favourite ones. Mike Dunlap, I think, taught me a lot of things when he came out here, especially at the defensive end. Not that I was known for defense, that's for sure, but some of the things that he implemented for me as a young player was good. I really enjoyed playing under Phil. I loved his style and the way he managed the players and got the best out of them. On the Australian team, I guess I played under Brian Gorge at my last Olympics and Barry Barnes for the first two. And as far as coaching styles and that, I really enjoyed playing under Brian. I thought I'd played against him for so long and in all those finals and all that, and I'd only seen that side of him, but to play for him, it really opened my eyes. He gave me a very good opportunity in that 04 Olympics, and I enjoyed the way he coached as well. So there was a few people along that line that I think played some big parts in it.
Definitely a few blasts from the past there, so good to hear some of those names. Yeah.
I guess when we're growing up as kids, Brett, we take to a lot of sports here in Australia. Was it just basketball for you that you played when you were growing up, or was there anything else you took interest in, footy or cricket or anything like that?
Yeah, I played a little bit of footy. Basketball, unfortunately, is so dominating. I reckon by the time I was in under 12s, the coaches were saying you've got to decide if you want to just play basketball or do other sports. So then I just stuck to basketball, but I played a bit of squash and tennis as well when I was growing up, and the footy. But basketball was always my passion, and the NBA was kind of just coming on the screens then, and I kind of fell in love with watching Magic Johnson, the Lakers, and so he became a bit of an idol for me. And then with the 36ers, I like going to watch the shooters more than anything, probably Daryl Pearce and Mike McKay, those sort of guys. And on the Australian team, I enjoyed watching Phil Smythe as a guard and of course Andrew Gaze as I was growing up as well as some dominant players.
So, Brett, you were obviously staying up those Friday nights watching those ABC NBA games in the 80s as well, right? Yeah,
yeah, I was. And I guess in those days you're either Lakers or Celtics. And, I just love the run and gun style of the Lakers. So that kind of converted me.
Well, let's maybe go back to '89 when you took up that scholarship at the AIS. You were just speaking of that earlier. You were there, I think, between '89 and '91, if I'm not mistaken. How's this experience for you? We often hear the way things are there. Don't always suit everyone that attends. Who are some of your teammates during that time as well at the AIS, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think as far as living away from home at the age of 15, you grow up pretty quickly. I was surrounded by some guys that are a bit older than me, so I think I probably matured a little bit quicker as well. I played with, I guess in my first few years, some guys that went on to NBL, Tony Ronaldson, Andrew Goodwin, Lockie Armfield, Matt Reese.
David Close around that time, was it? David Close there?
Yeah, David Close. Yeah, very good player.
Radar, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the best shooters I've seen, especially catch and shoot. Brendan Lagassic. There was some really good talent, especially in those first couple of years. And a lot of those guys went on and did some good things and played for Australia as well. So I enjoyed the fact that we had to go to school, but with such a focus on basketball, it taught me how to lift weights properly, how to look after my body and do the recovery stuff and really rounded me, I think, as an athlete a lot probably earlier than some other guys coming into the league that didn't have that sort of exposure.
What was that like being away from home at that age, Brett? Because obviously you mentioned like 15 or so. That's pretty early to sort of leave the home and leave the family and everything. How was that part of it?
Yeah, it was a little bit tough early. I was, let's just say, mum and dad look after me very well. So it was a big change to leave the house and kind of fend for yourself a little bit, although they do look after you pretty well at the Institute. You get all your meals and you just have to really do your washing and make sure you go where you're supposed to on time. But I think even from a schooling perspective, having to come home and study and do all that, it was a big learning curve. But playing against men at such an early age in that Siebel competition at the time, I think kind of helped elevate my game as well. There were some excellent players playing around the league, the Dellavedovas and Alphonse Hammond and players like that were exceptionally good that I got to play against on a weekly basis. So that helped as well.
Good stuff. So, if I'm not mistaken, there you were considering attending college in the US. Is that right? I believe you were maybe recruited by legendary Arizona Wildcats coach Lute Olson there. How close was that to eventuating? Was that something you wanted to do, or were you just happy to sort of be a pro in your home city there?
I did get kind of courted by them for a while. I was getting mail every day, and I was kind of seriously considering it. That was kind of at a stage. I then ended up doing my right cruciate, and that took me out of the game for about 6 months. And they then wanted to see me play. I scraped into the World Junior team at the time and was coming off the bench. And after that, they kind of came to me and said, look, we think we can get someone of your level back in the States, because I was coming off the bench and not playing that much. So I kind of agreed, and they ended up going on and picking 3 or 4 guys that went to the NBA. So I think they picked some pretty decent players instead of me. So that was all right. And it kind of made my mind up between going over there or coming back and playing for Adelaide. And I guess it worked out in the end. But I guess when you look back as well, you go, oh, might have been a pretty cool experience to go over there and see what college life was like.
Absolutely. Well, let's sort of take it back to those early years as well. So obviously you finished at the AIS. You joined your hometown 36ers at the young age of 19 there. How big a thrill was this for you, and what was that very first rookie season like for you there?
Yeah, it was a good year. Had Don Shipway as coach, and he had, I guess, come in under Ken Cole, and then was given the role as head coach. And we had a pretty tumultuous year. I think we just missed the playoffs, but he gave me a good opportunity and gave me some court time. And I was very nervous because it was a team that I had grown up from 5 or 6 years old watching and going to games and seeing heroes, and then getting to play with some of those guys like Mark Davis, etc. It was very nerve-wracking, especially early, but they welcomed me in and taught me the ropes, and I think I kind of came around fairly quickly.
Who were the other guards on that team there in your rookie season? Was Butch Hayes there that time, or was that maybe a year or two after?
I should have remembered that.
Okay,
Butch, I was very lucky to play under Butch in my first year.
Legend.
He's such a very good person and a nice bloke, but a really good player to learn from. He's a good ball handler, good distributor, could get to the bucket and score, and I got to play against him every day. So that was pretty good in my first year, and then the club went and got Phil Smythe back, and I got to play with and alongside Phil and then Rick Brunson I played with as well in those early years, who went on to play 10 plus years and now coaching, and his son's killing it.
Killing it, yeah.
So I had some really good players around me in those first couple of years, especially guards that really helped my development.
Well, you speak.
Butch Hayes is one of those names I think gets forgotten about a little bit, doesn't he? But someone that I loved watching play, growing up.
Yeah, and I think everyone remembers him pulling, had his socks that pulled blood up to his knees.
Yeah.
He kind of looked like Steve Urkel a little bit sometimes, just in some of his way he talked and movements. But he was a great player to play with.
Well, when you speak about those early days, it was also a great era for guards, not just guards, point guards. At the time, there was like Ricky Graves, Derek Rucker, Shane Hill. You mentioned your Phil Smythe, and then a little bit later, guys like D-Mac. Who were some of the toughest guys that you went against? And did you feel like you had any personal rivalries at your position, throughout your career, right?
Definitely had some rivalries. I think there was the obvious one with myself and Shane Hill, because we were always battling for a similar spot in the Australian team. So he kind of had a bit of a leg up on me there and played well internationally. But when we played domestically in the NBL, I always, I don't know if I lifted my game a little bit, but I certainly wanted to win that game because I am competitive, as my kids know. He was one of the ones that I look forward to playing against. But if I go back now and I rate players, I rate Ricky Grace as one of the all-time best, probably top 3 players ever. And I was lucky enough to play with him on the Australian team, and we were both coming off the bench, and a lot of times after trainings we would stick around and play one-on-one against each other. And I'd always guarded him when we played Perth, but he just gave me even more acknowledgement of his skill level when I had to match up with him day after day and try and stop him. He had such a quick first step, and at that stage, I know early in his career he wasn't the best three-point shooter, but at that stage he was knocking it down left, right, and centre. So,
top of the key, right? He was really dangerous up there.
And just as far as putting the ball on a platter for other people, he was one of the best. Like, he pretty much gave Paul Rogers his MVP in the league when he won. Like, him driving the bucket, Roger going to the basket and finishing off. They were a good combination. But, he was tough. I think, Derek Rucker, when he came out especially, was spectacular, and played against him in that 2002 grand final series that we won. And he was one of the few that, like me, had a very big jump in his jump shot. A lot of players have a more economical style, but him and myself have a really big jump in our shots, and really respected his game style. But also got to play with D-Mac on the Australian team as well, and got to watch him play and see how players go about their business. And when they beat us in the 94 championship, and he also beat us on the buzzer a couple of years around that as well, hitting a couple of shots over me. He's I think, one of the most fun players to have watched in the NBL. And as a fan, I would have paid money to go watch him just because he had that New York style with the ball that was fun to watch. And he was one of the guys that improved his three-point shot over time as well, because he wasn't that good at it when he first came out, but became pretty steady with it by the end.
And you mentioned those guys, they came here all those years back, and now, the likes of Ricky Grace in Perth and Derek Rucker in Brisbane, and, D-Mac, he's obviously spent a lot of time in Melbourne, but working with Brisbane at the moment. But they're giving back to the game. They've set up lives here in Australia, just like many imports have. So it's good to see that they've stuck around all this time. And you mentioned a few others earlier, Al Green, etc. I think Butch Hayes is still here, right? So, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's the difference, I guess, between our era and like the current era. The players are a lot more mercenary these days, just chase the money, and there's not a lot of loyalty. Well, players argue from the club side as well, but definitely from the players, they chase the money. And we were lucky through that time that a lot of the clubs were able to keep the same imports and the fans could identify with them. And you look here in Adelaide, we had Al Green, we had Mark Davis over such a long period of time. You look in Perth and they were able to keep Ricky and James Crawford and those sort of guys. And you could go around all of those teams and those players stuck, whereas now the imports just pretty much get changed over nearly every year. And I think that's probably an area why Perth's done so well, is they're able to somehow hang on to like your Bryce Cottons and those superstar players, whereas some of the other clubs haven't done as well in that area.
I agree. Well, maybe we talk quickly about some of the best times you had, those 3 championships. I mean, that was a stacked team. You had those back-to-back runs. You had the Aussie big Paul Reeves you just mentioned, the Catman, Martin Catalini, as well the import duo, Darnell, me, Kevin Brooks we just spoke about, and there were key reserves on that team, Rupert Sapwell, the chairman of the board, so obviously Mark Davis, David Stiff, I think, and Scott Ninnis as well. What was with those teams that clicked so well, and what did that first title actually mean to you personally, Brett?
It meant a lot. Well, I mean, for Adelaide, we hadn't won a championship since 1986. We came close in 94, as I said, and got beaten by North Melbourne. So there was a lot riding on it. We came up against a very, very talented team that was highly picked to win that year. That was the Magic, coached by Brian Goorjian, and they had a spectacular list as well. And at the time, like everyone was picking them to win, and for us to sweep them was a big surprise. I think it was a bit of a surprise for us even. And at the time, you don't realise the talent of what you had on the team. We knew we had a good team, but you look back at the end of all of those players' careers and you go, wow, the talent we had, like John Riley as well in that mix.
Got to mention,
did some spectacular stuff. But we had a lot of really good role players in that team and a lot of guys that could score, and we had good defensive rules because we had a lot of guys, myself, Martin Catalini, Kevin Brook, quite a few guys that weren't known for their defense, but as a team collectively played well. So to win that one and then back it up the next year against another Melbourne team coached by Brian was pretty good, and that was a little bit harder, having to win it in 3 and win it at home after winning the first one away. I think it made us really work for it, but that was pretty nice to win one at home as well, to win that back to back.
Yeah, that's nice. Sorry, Robbie, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask Brett if he was dirty that Kevin Brooks got the third of those finals MVPs. He didn't let you have the clean sweep there.
No, he deserved it. He won it in the first one in '98, and he played, especially in that second game over there. He was unstoppable. You see some guys playing really good defense on him, like Tony Ronaldson, etc., and he was unstoppable. So, he was a real standout in that series. But, probably one of my favourite ones is the 02 championship, where I think we say that we stole it, really. We didn't have the best team, but once again, we had myself and Willie, who I guess were the main scorers in that team, but had some guys that played their roles to perfection. Your Rupert Sapwells, David Stiff, Paul Rees, Those sort of guys were the hidden champions in that team, I guess. Like Rupert Sapwell came out and had 18 points in the first quarter of that in that deciding game, and just efforts like that are the things that win championships. So, it was pretty special times, those 3 championships.
I can imagine, Brett. And look, myself and Robbie were both very patriotic Boomers fans, and it meant so much to us seeing how loyal and dedicated you were to the Boomers program. What did it mean to you putting on the Boomers jersey? And looking back on it now, those experiences and those memories, what stuck out for you most? But good and bad, let's say. Yeah.
I think for me growing up in that era, it was more representing your country was the highest and best thing you could do, rather than going to the NBA, which I think a lot of the younger guys might say is kind of their optimal goal. For me, it was always representing Australia. So when I got that opportunity, it was very special to make the first time you get told you're going to Olympics, I think is really special. And getting to go to a few of them was really good. I guess on the downside, I would have liked to have probably been given a little bit more of an opportunity in those first 2. We had a very good team, and when you finish 4th, you can't really say too much. I think we achieved probably as much as we could have with those teams finishing 4th. The way we're playing, coming up against Lithuania in both of those deciding medal games was a pretty tough ask. A very, very good team. And, they played very well to beat us as well. So that was pretty special, getting to play off for a medal. And then you fast forward and you see the rose gold stuff and all the current players winning, finally breaking through and winning that medal. And everyone saw Andrew Gaze talking about it and breaking down a little bit on TV. And I think myself and a lot of the other players that went through a lot of that groundwork were in a similar position emotionally for what we'd probably given to that program. And there was probably a few tears going around in a lot of living rooms when they finally did do it. And I think they've done a really good job in recent years of reconnecting with past players and setting a really good culture up around that team now.
Good stuff, yeah. Love those old Boomers teams back in the day. I'm still picturing, the Bear hitting that big shot.
That was amazing. When he hit that shot in the corner against Croatia, the whole bench lifted, or everyone lifted. It was I think one of the biggest shots in the history of Australian basketball.
For sure.
I can still picture it so vividly as well. It was a huge moment.
Nice. Well, look, we mentioned at the start, in that amazing intro that I did, obviously, there, Brett, about your number 5 hanging in the rafters. We already spoke about one of the other guys in Al Green. I wanted to ask you about the 2 other guys, though, whose jerseys are retired. So Mark Davis and Daryl Pearce. I think Pearce might have retired the season before he started. So talk to us a little bit about those 2 legends, the chairman of the boards and the Iceman.
Yeah, I'll start with the Iceman because I grew up kind of watching his game very closely. I love watching him shoot. It was such an effortless shot, and he was such a good 3-point shooter. The year I came into the 36ers had decided to move him on. A lot of people thought that I was replacing him, but I never thought of it as that. And it was a bit of a shame that I didn't get to play with him. I would have liked to have played with him at least for a year. He went on and played for North Melbourne and ended up, he was in that 94 team that beat us. So he kind of got a little bit of sweet revenge, I think, for getting moved on. But I still see him. He comes over here occasionally and I get to catch up with him when he does. So that's really good. As far as Mark Davis, I think he revolutionised the power forward position. He came out here and it was really weird circumstances that he ended up playing for the 36ers. He was, Don Shipway had actually recruited him to play for South Adelaide, I think, via New Zealand. And he was playing exceptionally well in the local competition. They decided to bring him out and train with the 36ers, and he just destroyed everyone. And they ended up sacking the guy that had the spot here at the time and put Mark in, and he stayed there for 16 years or whatever.
He's still here as well, right?
And he's still here, but just his style of game like that, 6'6", super muscly, super athletic. It did change the game, and then other teams started recruiting players along the similar lines. They brought out guys like Scott Fisher. Who else did they bring out? Melvin Thomas, sort of guys in that same sort of mould as Mark, because they had to try and keep up.
Nice. So one thing I like to do, Brett, I always do this with Woody. I like to put him on the spot and get him to sort of name lists and everything else like that. Got an easy one for you. I want to know who you think the 3 best imports were that you played with during your time with the 36ers.
Well, Darnell's definitely there. It's a real hard. I really enjoyed playing with Willie Farley as another guard that we won the championship with. So as far as playing with guards and winning those 2, the third one's a tough one. That is a really tough one because there were some spectacular players. It's hard to go past people like Robert Rose, who came and played here, and you just found yourself standing and watching his brilliance as he played. But also, like your Butch Hayes, Mark Davis. I didn't play with Al.
Kevin Brooks, you mentioned earlier as well. He's going to be in the conversation, right?
Yeah, KB certainly comes into that. So, number 3 is a real tough one.
Who was your other import on that third championship team alongside Willie?
We bought in Matt Garrison about halfway through the season. So for a lot of the season, we were just running with Willie, and then probably half to 2/3 of the way through, Matt Garrison came in, and he'd won the championship with Illawarra. I think that was the year before, and he was a really important piece of the puzzle. Probably if you looked at it statistically, it wouldn't shine out, but we had quite a few young guys on that team, and he was a spectacular link between the younger guys and the older guys, and he has a bit of ADD, so he always provided a lot of energy, and was just a great guy to have around the team.
Yeah, and Mark Davis had naturalized obviously by that time, so even though he basically had the 3 imports, you could call it, right, when Garrison joined the squad, right? So
actually, I think. Did Mark? I can't remember if Mark was in the 02 championship.
I think he'd already retired.
He'd already retired. Yeah, he retired. Yeah. He had retired. Yeah.
But we got to play him as a naturalised player for a while, which was pretty good.
And I guess after retiring, right, I've read somewhere, you followed in your father's footsteps, right? You joined the South Australian Fire Services, and you had some other initiatives, like you had your own company that was taking kids on tours to watch sporting events, like NBA games and stuff. What's going on with all that now, if you don't mind me asking? You still, taking part in those things? Or?
Yeah, I am. I love it. I am in the fire service. I've been in there about 8.5 years now, and my dad was in there for 25 years. And so I kind of knew what I was getting in for, but I have been kind of lucky. I don't put it down to luck. I think you work for what you get, to be able to play professional basketball for 18 years and then come into a profession that is very, very similar, that I love, and every day is different when I go to work at the fire service. And, serving the community has always been a big part of my life as well. So that just made sense. And I went on a basketball tour when I was 13 to America, and had one of the times of my life, and still kind of write to some of the people that I met over there. And in 2013, I got involved and started doing tours over to America, and now have my own company with Sam Woosnam called All World Tours, that sends club and school teams over to America, and we set up games for them, send them to NBA games, college experiences, and going to college games. And I think for young kids to go over and have that opportunity to play against high schools and watch NBA games and get that American experience is, I think, a really good thing for them to do. And especially for kids that are looking to potentially go over and play college basketball.
And both those activities is giving back, and doing some good for the community and helping others. So it's great that you've found that, that drive to do something post your playing day. So good stuff,
Yeah,
Brett.
I find it hard to sit still, my wife says. So I like to be doing a few things, and
Yeah.
still kind of a fair bit involved with the 36ers.
Yep.
And on game nights, I'm generally around doing some things, and I run the clinics during the school holiday periods and school visits with the team, which I really enjoy doing that as well, and teaching young kids the art of basketball is kind of firmly in my blood.
Awesome.
Well, Brett, before we sort of finish up and talk a little bit about the current NBL, I'm very curious about the signature on the court, right? We see it every game. My daughter, who you met before the show, always comments, there's a signature on the court there. How did that all come about? Because that's not something you see very often, right?
I think it's the only way they can get rid of me. I always say that as a bit of a joke, but it was a really huge tribute, I guess, to my career that the club decided to do that. At the time, the only one that the club and myself was aware of was Red Auerbach having his name on the court in Boston. It's become a little bit more prevalent now around Australia on different courts and internationally, but at the time it was very, very rare to have done. They first actually just put my name all the way along the sideline with the years that I played, and it kind of looked like I died and it was in memory of sort of thing. And then they decided to change it to my signature. And then I guess one of the big moments right at the end of my career, we played New Zealand in that last season, and I hit a 3-pointer from where the signature is now. So that's where they kind of decided to put the signature on the court, and that's why it's there on the court.
Yeah.
But it is a big thrill to walk in and have it called the Brett Maher court, and to see the signature on the court. It's always a big thrill.
The ultimate honour. No, that's great. I actually hadn't realised that where they've placed that is where you hit that big three against the Breakers. So that's good. Well, what I wanted to ask you there, Brett, couple of questions about the league, as I mentioned. So maybe we'll start off with the 36ers. So, they finished their season up yesterday at the time of recording.
Thanks for that, by the way.
February. So.
Thanks for that. Gave us a home game against the Breakers. So thanks to you guys.
We did help you out there, that's for sure.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you, look, they ended with a 12-16 record in 9th place. I mean, Woody and I, we're probably not the best at predictions. We both tipped them to finish 10th, and I don't think we had them anywhere near 12 wins. And that's just being honest. We'd made our tips at the start of the season. Feels like it was a really greatly improved team after your good friend Scott Ninnis took over as head coach. So how would you rate the team's performance this season overall?
Yeah, I think it was a tale of two halves, really. There was the CJ half and then the Scott half. Obviously, it didn't go too well in that first half of the year. The team, I think, was probably performing at about 30-35% of their capability. They mentally weren't in the place that they needed to be. The style of the game that they're playing was not really attractive as far as I was concerned. And, they just didn't look like they were clicking. Once Scott took over, I think he made a few pretty minor changes, but they made a big impact. I think defining their roles, kind of changing the court time of some of the players, I think made a big difference. And just the style of play, he ended up working the ball through Isaac a lot, and I think there wouldn't be too many people that argue that he was probably the centre of the league this year. He had a spectacular season, and that also opened it up for guys like, bringing DJ Vasiljevic in helped a lot, having a scorer of his calibre. And also I think one of the players that really elevated under Scott was Trey Kell.
For sure.
Moving him to the point guard spot, a lot of people were a bit worried about, but he played point guard in college and had done that before, and I thought he kind of lifted his game to another level, and then some of your other guys started lifting as well. Kyron Galloway, I thought, Scott getting more court time has certainly raised his stocks a little bit as well.
Definitely.
And some of the other guys as well played really good cameo moments. lift. And Scott's record 8-7. I think, well, if he started the year and had an 8-7, you expand that over the year, probably would have finished in fourth place with how close the league was. So I know they're having conversations this week, I believe, after they get back from the awards dinner tonight, and we'll see if something can get finalised in the next week or two for that coaching position.
How much does that role mean to Scott? You can see, obviously, how passionate he is coaching his 36ers there. How much does that mean to him, do you think, personally?
Yeah, and I'm one of his best mates and catch up with him a lot. And him, myself, a lot of the past players bleed for the club and would do anything to help. And he's one of those guys. He's a big believer in getting the culture right at the club, and also just getting the team back on track and getting it successful. It's been a long time since we've had teams not only win a championship since '02, but just making finals and being competitive. And like you kind of feel for Grant Kelly, who's poured a lot of money into this team and effort, and we haven't been able to get to finals and win games. And financially, that makes a big difference as well to the club. So I know he is very invested. He's brought Graham Cubank on board as his assistant, who he can trust. And also, not a lot of people know, but Graham, when he came on, he hasn't been paid. Like he said, he's just taken a long service from his day-to-day job to help the club out. And it's efforts like that I think really go a long way to turning the club around and getting it back on track. And I think Scott's probably, well, not probably, I think he's definitely the pick moving forward for at least the next couple of years to try and turn it around and get them successful again.
High character individuals that he's brought in as well, that shows character. Yeah, here through the grapevine, that's very close to being done. It's well deserved, right? So,
yeah, I think so. I think where they were at mentally and playing wise for him to turn them around and make them competitive and win that many games, I don't think there's many people or coaches that would have been able to do that where the team was at when he took over.
And the priority's got to be.
Speaking of Brett, we talked about imports earlier on, and how some of them can be mercenaries and those sort of things. Adelaide always seems to be a team to me that is always changing their imports. You don't get a lot of those imports for the 36ers that come back for 1, 2, 3 seasons in a row. Do you think that's something that might change, or do you think it's just the nature of the way the game is these days that it's hard to retain some of this talent?
Well, it is hard. But Adelaide just hasn't been able to get, I guess, the right sort of person that wants to stay, and that we've been able to entice to stay. I guess money always plays a big part. Some people leave for money. Yeah. Some people leave for different playing experiences and different coaches and organisations and management or whatever. There's a lot of reasons, but that's one area that we've, over the years, haven't done the best job of, and I think that would be one of the key ingredients that we're, as a club, are trying to change, attract the right people. And I think getting DJ to sign for 3 years is a good start to have someone of his calibre. And it'd be nice to lock away after this season guys like Isaac Humphries and that as well, and create that core that you can just continue to build around and build a successful organisation around. I know Scott is very passionate about having South Australians in the team as well, which probably hasn't been a focus of the last 3 or 4 or 5 coaches that aren't South Australians. So I would imagine that the kind of guys on the end of the bench and development players would all be South Australians if that's the case, if Scott's appointed.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I was just about to say priority would be to get someone like Isaac Humphries and even a Trey Kell to potentially come back, right? Because things are working, how that looks financially, it's another question, but, it would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it all comes, money talks, doesn't it? But I think, and it's interesting with someone like Isaac having probably his best year ever.
For sure.
Having the offense being run through him. If you leave for a bit more money, is that going to happen in other clubs? You're not sure. If he stays, that would remain a constant, I would imagine. And I would think that he would have a very good year again. Not only that, but people bagged him a couple of years ago about his body and getting hurt all the time. I think the last, not only this year, but the last couple of years, he's done a sensational job of
for sure.
keeping his body right. He didn't miss a game this year. And, I think he'd be great to keep here in Adelaide. We'll see how that goes.
For sure. I guess finally, the Next Stars program, it's added a lot of, a different dimension to this league. Liam's doing a great job building that up, and a lot of eyes have been on the NBL. How do you think that program's going, and what kind of impact is it going to have on the NBL going forward, in your opinion?
Oh, I think that link between the NBA and Australia has been amazing. It's been fantastic for the game, and a big reason why a lot of the venues are selling out. Like, I'm bemused, or not bemused, I'm happy for the fact that I go to a 36ers game and they're second to bottom or bottom, and we're selling out games, and people are going away happy. The fans are loving the experience and what they're seeing at the moment. And I think that NBA involvement is a big part of that. The Next Star program is a big part of that. And it's been, I think, a fairly successful platform so far, seeing some of the guys use that to get into the NBA.
Yep.
And I'm really keen to see what happens with the guys that are going through that this year. I think, Saar in Perth is clearly going to do very well. He's a very special talent. I saw Trenton just the other day, and he looks like he's going to declare. He's going to go back and do workouts with a lot of the teams. And he said he's been getting some really good feedback, even though he hasn't had a lot of court time probably in the back half of the year. But he's getting some really good feedback from people back there. And, he's a young kid. He's 18 years old and learning the game still. And but is one of the most athletic people I've ever seen come out here as well. What he can do athletically, which fits that NBA mold. They're after athletes. They're after guys that they can build into the sort of players that they want. And so hopefully he can get drafted, and it'll help kind of this whole process with the Next Stars.
Who's winning the title this season?
Oh, look, if you asked me probably a month ago, I would have said Melbourne, no doubt. But a couple of those top teams are limping in. Like, you look at Perth's results over the last 3-4 weeks, they don't fill me with a lot of confidence at the moment. I actually think Tassie are playing some really good bar, and they had that bit of a lull probably a couple of months ago, but the last month they've been getting right back on track. And I think Scott Roth is the best coach in the league. What he's done down there and the culture he's created, I think he's done an amazing job. A couple of seasons ago, the privilege of doing some courtside commentary, listening to a lot of the coaches via that. And, that didn't change. That probably only increased my opinion of him, the messages he was delivering in timeouts, etc. He's excellent.
He'd be a fun coach to play under. I would have thought someone like Scott Roth. He really sort of has his players' backs, doesn't he? You can certainly see that. Yeah,
and they have his back. That environment down there. You speak to some of the players that play under him, and they love him. The style he's created. He gives them all an opportunity, and they seem to flourish down there, which is a sign of a good coach and a good environment. And that's why I think they're going to be successful while he's down there. And that's the sort of thing that we need to create here to get that environment where players want to come. I think at the moment, to get players to Adelaide, if I'm being harsh, we're probably overpaid to get players here in the last 5 or 10 years because of some reasons. It'd be nice for players to be knocking on our door saying, we desperately want to come, because of the situation and setup that you've got there. And I know the club doesn't want to overpay for players, and they shouldn't overpay for players. And it bemuses me a little bit to look at what some players, like when you're from a different era and you look at what some players are getting paid now, it's a big eye-opener, and good on them. Like, they're getting paid very well, some of these guys now. And that's due to the expansion of the league and the growth, which I think is fantastic and will continue to happen. Hopefully, I think Larry Kesselman, what he's done has been amazing.
well, you've certainly paved the way for a lot of those players there, Brett. So, well, look, we really appreciate you coming on to join us today. I know Woody and I have both been really excited about this one. Certainly a player that we both, really followed. I mean, I'm a Wildcats fan. Woody's a Sydney fan, but it didn't matter. We love watching you in that number 5 for Adelaide and, all those games for the Boomers there. So we might just do a quick outro then before we wrap it up. So just a reminder for people listening to the show, please make sure you like, rate and subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Social media, we can be followed on X at Throwbacks Hoops, on Instagram, throwback.hoops, and our email address is throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Brett, where can people find you? You mentioned some of those endeavours you've got there. Where can people sort of, follow you? Have you got anything you want to plug there at all?
Oh, yeah. If they want to go to All World Tours, just check that out on the internet. That'll have all of the information, and they can contact me via that if they're interested in going on tours to the States or to Europe. We do some stuff over there as well. So, yeah, check that out. And, hopefully we'll see you at some 36er finals games in the future.
Good stuff. And what about you, Woods? Any final words?
Just it's been an honour. I'm sure Brett achieved a lot playing in the NBL and for the Boomers and whatever, but he's a great man, and it's very nice of you to give up your time and be so kind. So we appreciate it beyond end. So thank you, Brett. It means a lot.
No problem. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Thanks so much, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. It's a big peace out from the Throwback Hoops crew. See you next week.